That's James's dinner. And I'm letting the wheatgrass and the bean sprouts that I have sprouting get some sun while I'm doing this because I'm not eating. I'm going to talk about the end of Pandora's Clock, which I reviewed the other day. And then we didn't have a deck dinner yesterday because it was gloomy, and I was impressed.
It was cool too.
So anyway,
I was feeling pretty, I wouldn't say depressed, but
we were both down.
Kind of physically down, tired or something. I don't know.
So
of course, sometimes the meds that I take.
Well, I made up for it today with lots of sonnet.
Well, I think you've written 5, 6 sonnets, which is amazing.
Yeah. So I hadn't finished this, and I was reading this, and I was like, I know what the ending's gonna be like, and so whatever, I'm just gonna review it. The ending was not what I expected. So, I was reading this, and the whole time the pilot, he's the captain of the plane, and he's making the decisions for everyone, and he's like, he just disobeys the authority because he's the captain, and he's anyway. And I was thinking, okay, well, this is obviously the guy who wrote this. He's an airline captain for a major U.S. carrier. I'm thinking, okay, well, this is what he's like, right? He's writing, this is himself. He's the big hero. No! As it turns out, I'll just read some of the things that So here, when you get to the epilogue, which, wherever that is, it gets really interesting. So I was recommending this book anyway to people.
Yeah, even with 50 pages
without,
or so
because he writes really, really well, and like John J. Nance, he writes really well, and he tells an interesting story. I mean, this is set almost entirely in an airplane, and somehow you get through it. He knows what he's talking about. He knows airplanes. He knows the whole thing, right? So, and he's a good writer, so it works. Anyway, so then I'm getting to the epilogue, and I'm reading all about various things that are happening, and then all of a sudden, page 350, I'll read some of the parts from the epilogue. So, if you have not read this book yet, I recommend that you actually turn off the camera and then, or whatever, turn off your computer screen so that you don't get the ending of the book, because this is good stuff. And this is a must read for right now. We're in pandemic times, and today they announced on the radio that apparently, this is the first I've heard of it, so I guess they're taking it really seriously, but they're not serious enough that they've actually let Canadians know until now, until the chicken flu is already widespread across the country, apparently. So anyway.
They finally hit Alberta. It was apparently widespread across maybe part of North America. So I think it hit the United States first. So.
Okay, yeah, and somehow they just didn't bother to tell us. They're like,
that's the CBC.
But we're taking this really seriously.
Yeah, that's right.
But you don't worry about it. We're just gonna tell you right now.
We will have lots of stories about restaurants and
whatever
things like that.
Yeah. So
lots
anyway.
of sports coverage.
As you know, I'm reading from the book. While our medical response teams were holding the crew and passengers at Ascension, I recommended a longer quarantine. I remember clearly, John, the president said. I took the responsibility for letting them come back home in 3 days. No one was sick. What's your point? But they were, Mr. President, and we didn't know it.
Asymptomatic.
Sir, as you know, it takes exhaustive electron microscope examination of blood samples or tissue samples done by researchers in bioisolation suits in a level 4 environment to try to determine what a dangerous virus looks like. Wait a minute, no one was sick. No one has become sick, and we're weeks down the road. Actually, they were, Mr. President, the Army General said. The virus mutated. The deadly level 4 pathogen that killed those 2 men in Bavaria mutated in Professor Helms as it infected him. something, perhaps only one protein change. We have no idea what, but the viral program that began running riot in Helms's bloodstream suddenly lost the ability to sicken and kill humans, and its incubation period changed. Helms infected almost everyone aboard that 747, but not with the Hauptmann strain. It was a mutated version, which takes several days longer to fully incubate. It could show up anywhere, at any time, as a level 4 epidemic, Roth added. If we had kept them quarantined at Ascension for a month, the virus would have been totally gone. As it was, the symptomless infection was raging as they came back to their families on the 27th and probably peaked several days after that. Each person probably infected a dozen others, and so on. The general here tells me there may be an immunity to the Helms Bavaria built up eventually in our population, but not necessarily an immunity to any future mutated version. In a nutshell, sir, Roth continued, we screwed this up. We got the diagnosis wrong about airborne transfer and the incubation period, and we released those people far too soon.
Airborne transfer.
We should make some tough decisions right now on what to do if anything like Flight 66 ever happens again. Sir, the facts are, if the Hauptmann strain hadn't mutated, we could have lost up to 90% of the population of North America. There would have been no way to stop this once it got started. And, well, after that, I didn't care for the ending as much. You know, I mean, that really, it should have really ended right there. As far as, anyway.
You got to have a little bit of it might seem like a letdown or whatever. It's just wrapping things up. I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to find it.
You're going to read it?
I'm pretty sure I will.
Okay.
That was 1995,
got my
right?
recommend at least you.
Am I right?
Yeah, 95.
27 years ago, is that what it works out to be? 5 plus 22, roughly 27 years ago. So much of it is prescient. You know, it's not really prescient. It's just stuff that we figured out, even going back to the Middle Ages when it comes to the pest or contagion or something like that. You don't do so many of the things that governments, and this doesn't matter the level or where they're at, you don't do these things. You don't open things up early. You don't open things up until you know what you're dealing with. So like if you don't know if it's asymptomatic spread, you don't let it spread. But of course they did it. Woo-hoo-hoo. Yeah, fun times.
So, John Nance.
Yeah, good job there.
Good job.
You're probably getting up in years. I hope you survived COVID.
I hope so.
And am I being melodramatic? I don't know what's in store. I don't know. The stuff that we're getting now, Omicron tends to be more virulent. No, not more virulent, but more infectious. But we're just rolling the dice or playing. Really, it's more like playing Russian roulette with COVID. Bang, 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 and we've been lucky because we've been running across empty chambers. But, now we've let it spread. I don't know if we run across a variant that's more deadly, and this is the real scary one, about as deadly as Delta, let's say.
Yeah, and that's the
thing.
And
it is can't be dealt with by the vaccine because it's spread.
And the thing is people are acting like once you get a new variety, or as they're calling them, what are they calling them now? Subvariants, because they don't want to exhaust the whole alphabet of the Greek alphabet for some reason.
Oh, the reason is, hey, we've exhausted the alphabet. This is awful. We got it under control. We're slowing it down, so it's just subvariants now.
Yeah, whatever. So anyway, people are acting like, well, there's this new variant. Oh, we don't have to worry about the other ones anymore. No, we still have the other variants.
They're still there.
They're still there. We just have new ones too.
They're mixing and matching.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So the more stuff we've got out there, it's not just a question of the variants coming faster, but they're mixing and matching.
Yeah.
And the thing that's scaring me is some sort of Delta, the virulence of Delta mixed with this crazy Omicron stuff, especially the XE, thing, which is apparently even more infectious than the BA2. And they're not even saying where this XE thing comes from, because they got scared by Ramaphosa or Pusa or whatever his freaking name is. Hey, it wasn't us, like the Omicron didn't come from here, it came from Botswana. Stop your lying, you fake commie.
Fake commie?
No, he's a real commie, I think. Okay, but he's a faker. Lousy. He's a crypto commie. He's been hiding. He was a terrorist, especially bad terrorist back in the day of Nelson Mandela, another terrorist. Anyway, he's been made into something like a secular saint. Wow, he's up there on people's Mount Rushmore along with Martin Luther King and Lev Tolstoy. Like pacifist. Come on, he's a terrorist. Get it straight.
Well, you go ahead and talk about whatever you want. I already talked about what I wanted, and now the suns went away, and my babies aren't getting any sunlight.
Yeah, these are awesome though. They just shoot up. It seems every day.
Yeah, he loves wheatgrass because it grows so fast, right? Yeah. And so he
it's healthy, I think. We're supposed to be dealing with cancer.
Yeah.
And so
forth. I mean, we were reviewing the Ty Bollinger series years ago. I don't know when. And there was a clinic in Mexico where they were charging people big coins so that they gave them wheatgrass, and then
had them sit
under UV lights in the clinic.
You're in Mexico.
Yeah.
Sit out in the sun.
Exactly. I mean, you can't find a beach or something.
I presume it's northern Mexico, like maybe the Sonora Desert.
Because apparently wheatgrass, so they say. I don't know, right?
We don't want to. Don't try this at home.
Well,
if you feel
try it. Why not? I mean,
well, try it maybe,
it tastes good.
There might be bad effects that come with it. We don't.
Make sure you don't actually
anything.
eat the grass. You juice it, and how you juice it, you don't unless you have a fancy kind of juicer, it won't work. And I have tried it and wasted some grass in my juicer because it just flies through. But because I don't have a fancy
She's not
juicer.
talking about grass, okay?
No, not yet. But anyway, so the wheatgrass. Apparently, you need a fancy kind of juicer, or else how I do it and how a lot of people do it is you stick it in the blender with some water. So, and then you strain it right away. So you and then strain it into the glass. That's how you drink it, and it's really easy. So anyway, you clip it off and you juice it that way.
So don't get ripped off going south of the border down Mexico way.
Well,
do it yourself.
I don't know, but in any case, why? Apparently, the rationale behind I shouldn't have done that. I'm not meaning to say that it's fake science or whatever. It's crazy. That was unintentional motion of mine, and I apologize to the clinic in Mexico if I offend you. Anyway, but the rationale behind this wheatgrass UV thing for cancer treatment, apparently the UV in wheatgrass is high or something, and when your body, you still absorb some through your skin or something, and so they stick you under the lights, and you'd have to look into what they do exactly, because I can't remember, it's been years, but so I might have gotten this wrong, but apparently it makes your cancer cells pop. It makes them go through apoptosis and finally die, right? So maybe. I mean, it's really,
we don't know.
Wheatgrass, it's not bad. It's pretty easy to drink. It's not like James's asparagus pineapple juice, which I have there. That one, it looks kind of like a really bad algae pond.
Yeah. I think it's going to be healthy, but taste even healthier.
Yeah.
So
which the wheatgrass is pretty good compared to that.
What I'd want to say about the wheatgrass is we don't even know if it works. And there's all sorts of, not rationalizations, but irrationalizations of things in science. So, like atoms splitting, it begin a chain reaction process for the atomic bomb or something like that for fission. No, it's not splitting. It's a bad designation. They don't understand because they think it's they think the nucleus is either a liquid or a liquid drop model, or a gas model, or an orbital model, which is like something like a plasma model. Hey, there's a fourth state of matter, and it's kind of like the most basic. If you want to model, the easiest thing to do is to set up a physical model that's a solid. They've left that one. Hey, it is a solid. Neutron and nuclei are solids, and I'm not the only one to say that. Guy died in 1939, worked for a while in Canada, came from New Zealand, ended up doing his major work in, I believe it would have been Cambridge, in England. And he won the Nobel Prize, if I'm not mistaken, Ernest Rutherford. He's about the last major dude to think, hey, the nucleus is a solid. And he was actually an experimental scientist, not a theoretical, fly by the seat of your pants scientist like, so-called scientists like Einstein. And, like what it really is a crystal. And it has three cylinders. No, it's not three cylinders. It's a crystal. It's a crystal. And what happens is it's kind of like a layering of, you'll start with a seed of a proton. And then you'll have a kind of like surrounding that seed, you'll have a little box with the corners made out of electrons. And then surrounding each one of those electrons, you have protons, but no neutrons in the middle of a nucleus. In the same way that there are no NaCl molecules inside a crystal of salt. It's just an array of NaCl, 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 NaCl. But it's not that way. You see, like that's, what is that? I believe that's face-centered crystal. What's inside of a nucleus is a body-centered crystal. What happens is with these layerings is of, like protons and then electrons and then protons and electrons, is when a neutron comes from the outside, gets in there, neutrons aren't supposed to be in there. It's an array of protons and electrons. A neutron is foreign material, and it just sets up a huge shock waves going through the crystal. And the shock waves go around the crystal, like let's say the neutron comes in here, the foreign neutron, just sends shock wave, and holy smokes, it's bad when it's going this way, and then the shock waves meet on the other side, and boom, they reflect each other and back and back and back again, and they can actually detect. They don't realize they're shock waves, but they don't think it's a crystal, for one thing, but it looks to them as though it's kind of like extending and then coming back down. But what's really happening is the outer layer is trying to come off, trying to rip off here, and eventually it does. So it blows off an outer layer of the crystal, and parts left behind, and part of it eventually goes into something else, but it's not splitting like this. The two parts aren't. It's a certain something like that. So did you have anything more to talk about?
Well, something else funny that I thought about. I was in the store. I think it was Save-On, but I can't remember. It was a long time ago, and I noticed that they had little, like, kind of fake, like, planters with fake wheatgrass, plastic wheatgrass you could buy. So you could stick it. It
well,
takes.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
No time. Like how long does it take for a wheatgrass tray, like, to get this high?
You could
3
almost
days?
call it. I'm going to call it weak grass.
Yeah.
Weak you got.
Yeah, exactly.
Weak grass.
So just get yourself a little bit of peat moss or something, chuck it in a tray, we got this tray for free.
Put in a relatively
And
sunny window. It isn't even.
It doesn't
a
even have to be
south-facing
that
window.
sunny.
Yeah, it's
You know,
just
it just,
east-facing window.
that's why I'm feeling sorry for it right now, and I'm bringing it out here to get some real sun. But
Oh.
yeah, it's easy as can be. Don't buy plastic wheatgrass. That's silly.
Well, unless
silly.
you know, like some people when they get a little bit older, it's hard to take care of things, right?
Yeah.
You know, like we know someone who out in their front lawn, they were wonderful with plants, but when they got older, they had plastic plants outside.
Yeah.
So we
But-
want to stress that, you know, like
Yeah.
we don't want to make fun of people.
No, I mean, if you're gonna get your fake, maybe some fake plants, but maybe something like fuchsia or something with very fancy looking. I mean, this is so easy. It really is. Like when you're germinating it for the first little while, it's better to have the tray on it while the seeds are to keep it nice
But
and humid in there.
eventually,
and then,
it'll.
yeah.
And it's not that eventual.
No.
You know, it'll just be cramping its style if you leave
Yeah.
it down.
Yeah.
Top of the tray down.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess that's really all I had. I'm gonna give the bird seed and let James talk about whatever it is
Okay,
he
can
has.
you maybe check and see how much time I got? It's probably
Yep.
only about 5 minutes.
Oh yeah, you have 7 or so.
So the other day I started the review of this book. And I started reading an account of what happened in the third period of the last, and decided to So for the final game, the international folks, mainly the Russians, made sure there were a couple of corrupt referees. They're the ones who loved whistling dives. So it was made for so-called international hockey, which made it so it rewarded the Russians. The Russians specialized in power plays, in other words, taking advantage of man advantages. As the final period begins, Team Canada bursts out of the starting blocks. That's Bobby Clark, wins the opening face-off, and from the blue line, Ellis powers a drive that Tretiak has to hold on to for dear life. They had a little trouble with the rebounds in that series, and particularly in that game, but not really that much trouble. Because Henderson and Clark are immediately on top of him. This line was awesome for Canada. Henderson, Clark, and Ellis. I don't have to tell you about Paul Henderson, but everyone talks about Clark two-handing Harlamov. Harlamov played, I think he missed one game in the series, maybe the 7th game or something like that. And he was largely neutralized by, apparently he was limping a little bit, but he was largely neutralized by Ellis, aside from the first game where they caught, I don't know if Ellis was even covering in the first game. I don't know what the final score was, 7-2 for the Ruskies. These guys are prime, but so are the Soviets. Yakushev and Anisin break out on a 2-on-1, and Dryden makes a fine save on Anisin's hard shot. The Soviets threaten, creating some tense moments, but shoot wide of the net 3 times. They had trouble shooting. Fixation on the net is what makes the difference now. And the fact that Sinden replaces Frank Mahovlich, Frank didn't have a great series there. He's a great player, deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He did very well for the Montreal Canadiens when he finally made it there. That was his 3rd team, I think. Started with Toronto, won 4 Stanley Cups there. Had trouble with the coach. Moved to Detroit, didn't do so well there, even though he's playing a lot of the time with big old Gordie Howe. But he did very well. I think he won 2 Stanley Cups with Montreal in the early 70s, and he was integral, especially when they won in 71. He was amazing in that series. Frank Mahovlich with his younger brother in the line with Esposito and Cornway. Peter Mahovlich makes a superb, all-out, end-to-end effort to trigger the game's critical turning point. From behind his own net, Mahovlich passes up to Montreal teammate Cournoy. I think that's why they were playing together. He takes Cournoy's return pass and battles all the way up the boards and into the corner to the right of the Soviet net, keeping possession all the way, pursued by 3 defenders. So much for Soviet, discipline or something like that. You only send one person on another person. If he's big like Mahovlich and can skate reasonably well, maybe 2, but 3 defenders. But I think they were saying, hey, this guy's a Croatian, we hate his guts. And yeah, Mahovlich, like his brother was Croatian. I hope they're still around. Pursued by 3 defenders, finally upended by Kuzkin. That means, I presume, trip. Of course, no call on it. These referees were corrupt, useless idiots. I almost said something different from you. Mahovlich still gets off a centering pass to Esposito as he's falling, as he's being tripped. The puck strikes Gusev's stick in front of the net and flips into the air. Esposito bats it to his feet with his glove. Gloves at it, misses on his first try but connects on his second, shooting unerringly. Well, he shot a lot of erring shots. His idea was volume when it came to his shots. He scored lots of goals. Between Tretiak's pads, the Canadian fans erupt in delight. Only 2:27 gone in the third period, and Esposito has made it 5-4. It's 5-3. Teams generally don't come back from 5-3, even a tie, much less win. Sinden's the idiot coach for Canada. Coach of the Boston Brutes, otherwise known as the Boston Bruins. Sinden has his wish for an early goal. Espo and Mahovlich hug, but don't smile. There's a ways to go yet. Yeah, there's a mountain to go up. As Dryden makes a fine save on Saganov's dangerous slap slot, a fight breaks out between Gilbert and the Soviets' prime battler Evgeny Mishakov. Mishakov is trying to get a penalty so that they can score a goal, because that's all they scored basically towards the end of the series. Diving, getting power plays, and scoring power plays. So he would have been Gilbert. Rod Gilbert was as I recall, was a clean as a whistle player, like his team line mate on the Rangers, Jean Rattel, Mishakov. Canadian hockey pundits are astonished that Gilbert, here we go, hardly known for his fists in the NHL. So here's Mishakov, he's a pit bull. But Rod Gilbert, who's kind of like a panty waist, hardly known for his fists in the NHL, bloodies Mishakov's nose and emerges unscathed. They christened Gilbert Mad Dog. They're making fun of him, of course, ironic. Both players get 5 minutes, but contrary to the usual international ban on fighting, aren't thrown out of the game. So Mishakov is useless. I will say idiot. I was going to say something else. Was trying to get Gilbert. That line was actually clicking with Dennis Hull. Gilbert, Rattel, and Dennis Hull. They were clicking once they put Dennis Hull on that line and got rid of that idiot Vic Hadfield. Are you listening, Vic? Anyway, or he'd get rid of himself. Moments later, a questionable tripping penalty is called against Vasilyev when his hip check sends Clark flying. Yeah, okay.
Still have a minute. Just
okay, there we go. Seems not all the bad calls go against the Canadians. Not all. Who now have a one-man advantage, 5 men to 4, just when they need a goal so badly. Yet the advantage does Team Canada no good. They had their power play hardly did anything in the series. I think I'll end up there and tune in next time, and I'll tell you how that series ended, because you might have forgotten or didn't know or didn't care.